Great.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Happy to have you join us here for the second webinar as part of our communications training this series this fall called Making Waves for Clean Water, 3 Steps to Improve Your Organization's Communications. We had a great first session back in late September. It was all about everything branding. In a little bit, I'll drop in the YouTube link for that. It's on the Coalition's YouTube channel if you want to check it out if you weren't able to make it, or if you want to go and revisit it again if you were attending. But same thing this time around. We're recording it and we'll throw it up on our YouTube page later. So if you want to reference it back later, or if you have to hop off earlier or what have you, and you'll have that recording of it. Really excited to have Eric Eckel here from Water Words That Work to share a bunch of really applicable and relevant learnings in regards to improving your website's engagement and performance. Obviously, everything is on the internet these days, and having a strong and effective website is integral to having successful communications as an organization. So looking forward to hearing about all his tips and tricks. In regards to questions, please feel free to drop in questions to the chat at any time. If it's relevant to what Eric's talking about at that particular moment, I'll stop and ask that question. And if you're more comfortable coming off of mute to ask your question that way, just let me know and I can take you off mute so you can ask your question. And alternatively, if you want to hold your questions to the end, that's fine too. We'll have time for Q&A. So with that, take it away, Eric.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Drew. Drew, when I try to send a chat, my only option is hosts and panelists. Is there some setting that you can control that I can send a chat message to everybody in the webinar? I'm going to do that a couple times.
I'll send it, change it so that everyone can chat everyone. There we go.
All right. Perfect. All right. You got a website. Now what? So today I'm going to focus on websites as one link in the communication that leads towards more effective advocacy. But the insights, that most of the examples that I have for you here today are advocacy related, but there's countless other ways that this is useful. I know that you are not all advocates all the time. But what do I mean by advocacy outcomes? Well, let's take a look at some websites. Here we got the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, Take Action. And here I've got American Rivers, Take Action. And you'll notice that on this Take Action page, one of the first things they ask for is your email address. Here's a Conservation Lobby Day, rounding up volunteers and grassroots leaders and taking them in to meet with the legislators. This is from the Piedmont Environmental Council on their webpage. And here are some Environmental Lobby Day sign-up forms, and I see that they ask for the email address. I see that they ask for the email address. Here we have a clean water protest. And here I have a sign-up form to conduct a virtual protest, and this link takes you to a form that asks for your email address. And I keep highlighting the email address because a few years ago, back during Move On, the heyday of MoveOn.org, I had lunch with one of the senior staff at MoveOn.org, and we were getting ready to redo our website at the organization I was working for at the time. And this very accomplished progressive advocate, they were kind of the first big successful online advocates to come along, said, a website is just a vacuum cleaner for sucking up email addresses, which I thought at the time was a shocking thing, and I didn't want to believe it. But as the years have gone by and I have become ever more immersed in electronic communication, I have come to realize that fundamentally this is true, and it is still true in the age of social media. And on our next session, I'll talk a lot about what email is good for versus social media. But the metaphor that I'm going to be using for our time together here today is that a website is a vacuum cleaner for sucking up email addresses. What on earth do I mean by that? Well, it will become clear over time. And so here's the agenda for our brief talk today. I'm going to talk next about how visitors find and use your website, some of the key implications of that. Then I'm going to circle back to the website as one link in the communications chain. I've got a couple of examples of weak links and strong links, which we'll which we'll discuss. I'll tie it all together, and then I'll take your questions. Should take just under an hour, but as Drew mentioned, questions are welcome at any time. So let's talk about some rules of thumb for how people engage with the websites of organizations like yours. And in order to give you these benchmarks, I analyzed 25 small nonprofit and local government agency water-related websites and looked at the patterns. And here's what the analysis looked like. You see that I've got a local foundation, a watershed organization, a conservation district, a watershed organization, a waterkeeper, a watershed organization, a waterkeeper, et cetera, et cetera. Copied down some key statistics and tallied them up. Organizations a lot like yours. That's where these benchmarks come from. And a key distinction is that when I am using Google Analytics to see how people interact with the website, I've got visitors, and that's one person, and then I've got sessions, and that's one time the visit. And of course, a visitor can have multiple sessions. So just keep that distinction in time. Google, of course, will track, Google Analytics will track visitation to a website and tell you kind of a mind-numbing amount of data about them. So the first thing I want to talk about is traffic. I see there is a very large spread in the range of the traffic that the organizations are getting. So you see up here, some of them are getting almost 11,000 sessions per month, and a lot of them, the top sites are getting a lot of traffic. That's the key point. About half the sites, about a third of the sites are getting 2/3 of the traffic. And about half of the websites are getting close to nothing. And so the first tip that I would have for you is that don't assume that just because you have published your website that you're getting enough visitation. For many of the organizations that I have access to, all of that time, all of that money, all of that effort that they have put into the website, nobody is showing up. So tip number one is check your analytics. Check your analytics. Are you getting traffic to your website? Google Analytics will also tell us how visitors found the site. It gives us big categories and, of course, very granular detail depending on which you are looking at. I'm going to give it to you at the very big picture level. Is that about 40%, that's 2/5 of the traffic that you're getting to your website, if you're getting any, because 50-50, you're probably not, you might not be getting much. Start at Google, 40%, 43.6%, not quite half, 2/5. Starts with Google. And about 1/5 of those start with a Google search for the name of your organization. So if you searched Water Words, for example, at the time that I did this, we were the number 3 result for Water Words. If I typed Choose Clean Water Coalition or Pretty Boy Watershed Alliance or James River Association or Chester Riverkeeper or on and on, odds are very high. I would turn up very high in those results, most of you. But then about 1/5 of your visitors, that's a full 20%, they conducted a search for something other than the name of your organization. So at the time that I did this, if you searched environmental outreach experts on Google, we were the number 6 result. So number 3, if you searched for our name, number 6, if you searched for what we are, but you didn't know our name. That's where 20% of your traffic is coming from people who searched for something relevant to your mission, something relevant to your work, but they weren't searching for you. And so let me give you an example of where that goes wrong. This is the Monocacy and Catoctin Watershed Alliance here in Frederick County, Maryland, where I am based. This is a screenshot of their website. But if I search for Monocacy and Catoctin Watershed Alliance, they pop right up. But if I just search for Monocacy River, they are not on the first page of the results at all. And what we know about search habits is if you're not in the top half of the results on the first page, they're going to change their search and they're going to search again. So this fine organization is losing out on a lot of people who are interested in the work of the organization, but have never heard of the organization. And so let's see how you guys are doing. Just do a quick search, pull open another screen, and Google search for the name of the largest body of water in your area, and don't add your name. So if you're James River Association, search for James River. If you're Chesapeake Bay Foundation, just search for Chesapeake Bay. If you're the Chester River Association, just search for Chester River without the name of your organization. And if you appear in the first 5 results, I want to see it in the chat. Let me know who's there in the chat. Sarah Winchester's number 4. That's great. Oh, yeah. Oh, my. Some are getting there. Some are not. Some are getting there. Some are not. Now, that is called, we'll come back to what to do about that a little later. But just to give you a sense that Google is about helping people find you, whether they know they're looking for you or not. About 1/3 of the visitors to websites like yours start somewhere else on the internet, and they click on a link and they come to you. Just about 1/3 are arriving because they click on email, click on something in social media, or follow a link from another website back to your website. We call those backlinks in the biz. Email, social media, and backlinks from other websites account for about 1/3 of the traffic to organizations like yours. And let's do something like this. This is called Backlink Checker. It's free. This version is anyway. I'm going to type in my domain. Tell it I'm not a robot. And then it's going to tell me. I have 490 backlinks coming to waterwordsatwork.com from 91 different domains on the internet. And as I scroll down, you can see all of the web pages that are linking to mine. So take a minute, use backlinker.com. How many backlinks do you have sending traffic to your website? $111,000. Very good, Elizabeth River Project. 372, 164,000. I'll drop the backlink checker link in. 10,000. Quite a range. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 624. 670. Not bad. It's very insightful to see that. It's harder to search social media and see how many of those links there are, but it gives you a sense. The more backlinks you have, the more traffic you will have. Now, about a quarter of your visitors arrived direct. Direct is Google's word, but that means is that they can't be tracked back to any particular source. Direct visitors to the website include the organization's own staff. If I see a website that has very low traffic and a very high percentage of direct visitors, that tells me that the traffic to that website is disproportionately the organization's own staff. Direct traffic is also where we see people who are coming in that found the organization. They saw it in print, or they saw the organization on a billboard, or they heard about the organization on the radio, or they saw something on TV, or they picked up a brochure, and then they typed the URL directly into a browser and arrived without any other clicks in between, and that's about 25% of your traffic. Across those averages, about 54% of the traffic coming in is on a computer, a desktop, or a laptop, and 46% is coming in on a mobile device, a phone or a tablet. And this is the thing that has changed the most over the years since I started tracking this kind of information. Most of the other things I'm showing you, they seem to be holding pretty steady, but more and more and more traffic is now coming in off of a mobile device, and that has really changed a lot of the best practices. Website visits are short. On average, that's 104 seconds. So a minute 44 is the average visit to our most heavily trafficked sites, the ones that are getting real visitation. That real visitation they are getting tends to be brief, 144 seconds on average, which is enough for the average visitor to read somewhere between 250 and 350 total words. 250 to 350 total words is your average visit. So this is an example of what I will encourage you not to do. This is the Stroud Research Center, and they publish lots of long reports. Look at this. This is their water monitoring on the Schuylkill River. I'm just going to keep scrolling. 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 It goes on and on and on. Now, there's no rules that say you can't do this, since they obviously did that, and many conservation organizations often do that. They're very steeped in science culture, and science culture is very long attention spans. But in fact, very few web visitors would read something like this. Here's a better way of doing it. This is local. This is Little Falls Watershed Alliance. They've done this much more skillfully. That's about 300 words. This is their bacteria report, bacteria in the Little Falls report. That's about 300 words. Click to read and download the full report. That is a much more web-friendly way of doing this. That's much more calculated, much more consistent with how people actually use websites. And this is basically, as near as I can tell, this is a grant report that was posted to a web page in its entirety, and that just doesn't really reflect, even down to the footnotes, doesn't really reflect the way that people use websites. Closely related to the links, the vast majority of people that visit your website will only visit the page that they landed on. It's upwards of 80% of your visitors only visit one page. About 15% will visit 2 pages, and maybe 2, 3, 4% tops are going to visit 3 or more pages. Now, when you're working on your own website, it's normal that you're going to stay on the website for a very long period of time. You're going to visit page after page after page. But when you're just living your life and occasionally dropping into the internet to search around for something, to do something, you're probably spending 1 page or maybe 1 or 2 pages on most of the sites that you visit. And that's how most people will interact with your website. Now, this turns out to be really meaningful in combination with mobile devices, because in the mobile age, people will scroll. They will scroll long pages. That used to not be the way people use the web, but now that we're on phones, they will scroll long pages, but they actually don't click much. More scrolling, less clicking is the experience that you should aim for on your website. That makes the most of that minute and 44 seconds, because if they have to click, they probably won't. That click will be away from your website rather than deeper into your website.
So Eric, does that
And I
mean,
got some
quick question, Eric,
Yeah,
does
go
that
ahead.
mean that we should put more content on a single page rather than trying to have short amount of content on a page?
Yes, that's exactly what it means, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples. So here we go. I'm trying not to pick on local organizations to show bad practices, but So here's an example. This is the Illinois Environmental Council, and this is a very typical website for when conservation organizations are putting things together. Look how complicated this menu is. They've got 5 items under their About Us page. They've got 2 under their media and press pages. They've got 5 under issues, and then they've got even more layers in the menu. They've got 5 under their actions and 3 more under resources. Now, that used to be a perfectly fine way of designing a website menu. But let's take a look at what happens if I make it look a little bit like a mobile website. So I hope you can see this. But I'm going to make this, if I shrink this and now it looks like a tablet, look what happened to that menu. It turned into that little hamburger. We call that the hamburger. That's what you generally see as a menu on a mobile device. The average visitor, 80% of the visitors only see this page. And now they can't even see the menu. And if you click on it, all of these submenus, very mobile, unfriendly. They don't even see the menu in the beginning. All they see is the hamburger. So they don't even know about all that other stuff there if they're on a mobile device. I'm going to give you another example. I'm going to speak to KR's question just a little bit. So here's an example of a page that we worked with on a client. This used to be 30 pages. 30 pages. And now we have it boiled all the way down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages. We went from 31 pages down to 9 pages. And I'll give you an example. How do we handle that? Here's a long page with multiple sections. And in each section, the background color changes. It gets you a lot of that same feeling of clear delineation of different types of content. But the user scrolls to see it instead of click, 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 which we wish they would do, but they will not. Hardly any of them. Here's another page, section. That's all one section on this one. These are some success stories, some case studies. The page goes on and on. but the different colored sections have, 10 years ago, I would have said, make each of these a separate page because they're short. Now, best practice is put them all on one page, change the background color or add a background photo, something like that as you move from section to section, because people are more likely to scroll up and down than they are to click. If they click, that click is probably away from your page. So keeping the clicks to a minimum is the best practice here. So some key implications of how people are actually using your website is that the visits are short, 250 to 350 words. What does that mean? What is my advice? Try to capture their email address or connect on social media so you can invite them to visit again later. Instead of one long visit, we're aiming for frequent short visits. People will do frequent short visits. That one long visit where they savor and spend a lot of time poking through all that information you put on there, that doesn't really exist. That's a mirage. About half of the visitors are using phone or tablets, and a large majority of visitors only see one page. And the implication there is fewer menu items and longer pages is what fits into that world.
Hey, Eric, got a good question from Kristen here regarding how we should balance putting more content on a page for scrolling, but at the same time, folks have a limited attention span. So what's the way to kind of strike that balance effectively?
Yeah, so the example there was, I'll go back to this one, is to make the web pages skim friendly. So this page here is skim friendly. You can scroll through the page and skim the headlines, and then, yes, I'm going to read this 300 words. Scroll through the page, skim the headlines, and say, oh, I'm going to read that 300 words. Now, of course, there's not a law that says after 350 words, they're gone. And if your 350 words are extra exciting, then they might stay and read 500 or 600. But, they'll scroll the page looking at headlines, skimming for the thing that they're interested in, more than they will menu walk looking for the same thing. That's just how it is. 40% of the time they ended up on this page because of a Google search. So they are reasonably confident that something they want to see is on this page. Google matched them with this page. They'll scroll and look for it, skimming headlines and photos until they find that one section. Does that answer your question, Kristen? Would you suggest being highly selective in the content that is included in websites and just eliminating the rest? Yes, I would, Dominique. That's exactly what I would suggest. A lot of conservation organization websites end up looking like a garage sale. And, the more clutter there is on the site, the harder it becomes for your average visitor to find it. And, keeping your site lean and mean, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that, really helps the user get to what they're looking for, feel positive about the organization, and then they're more likely to allow you to suck up their vacuum cleaner, their address in your vacuum cleaner. So now a website is one link in the communications chain. And let's focus on the whole chain. So, of course, here's the website, which is the center of our focus of our conversation today. But here is some of the rest of the chain that I would encourage you to think about. So here we have the things that drive traffic to the website: Google search, email, social media, digital ads, and basically everything else. Here's the website, which is accomplishing various things. I like to advise my clients to think about the website as sending traffic to some kind of a contact form, which will capture that information in some kind of a database or a spreadsheet, which we are using to frequently circle back to try and using email, social media, et cetera, to try and bring people back to our website again and again and again.
Eric,
So let's focus.
Sorry, I just got a
Sure.
question from Sarah regarding blogs. Would that be a way to potentially put some more additional content in a format that's more amenable for more longer form content?
Yes, the simple answer to that is yes, because with their chronological organization, blogs can have a lot of different pieces of content without necessarily creating a very large vertical navigation system, which is really where the challenge is today. But before you go to that effort, I did urge you to check your analytics and make sure you're getting enough traffic to make sure that's all worthwhile. Because you might find that a better focus of your effort rather than more and more content on the website is putting some effort into traffic drivers to bring people to that website. Websites are very bad libraries. They're just not good libraries. They're more like storefronts. People just don't read a lot of stuff on websites. They just don't. So Google search. The magic word here is search engine optimization, which is the technique for improving your site so people find it if they're searching for something relevant, but they don't know who you are. That's the key thing. If I'm searching for something that you could deliver on, but they've never heard of you, will they find it? Now, search engine optimization is a whole nother, even one seminar is not enough for it, but here is a link to Google's official guidance on search engine optimization. If you're serious about having a lot of traffic to your website, this is one of the areas where you will get the best bang for your buck. And either immersing yourselves in the basics or bringing in some kind of a specialized vendor. I am not that specialized vendor. To help you with that is probably the most bang for the buck that you can get, because 40% of your traffic is coming in from Google. And we have very, very few clients that have ever really put any serious attention into trying to bring those numbers up. A third of your traffic is coming in largely from email and largely from social media. So before you start trying to figure out how are we going to get all this information onto the website, it breaks my heart when I see things like this. This is Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. I don't remember the names of all these organizations, where you can't easily find the email signups. They're very small. They may be buried at the bottom of the page. They don't appear on every page. Maybe it's only one page where there's the email sign up. One of the best things that you can do now that you have your website, is make sure that email subscribe options are super easy to find and are available on every single page, because the great majority of your visitors will only visit one page. Same thing goes for social media here. These here up on top are the examples that I like. The social media buttons are not the same color, so they come popping out. It makes them easier to know this. I want to see these social media follow buttons on every single page. Don't make your visitor go hunting around looking for them. This one I don't love as much because they just don't stand out as much. It's white on a darker background. It's very tasteful looking, but it doesn't just like pull the eye in. Oh, here's where that is. Now, digital ads I'm going to talk about in my next session, which is a few weeks from now, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that now, but it is easier and easier and more common for organizations like yours to be boosting Facebook posts in particular. Some clients get really good results with that. There's no guarantees, of course, but bang for the buck in this particular activity is very good. Offline promotion, unfortunately, has very poor bang for the buck. And so, you know, it's great to see your name in a print newspaper or to imagine a billboard or you get heard on the internet. But if you think about it, most of your visitors won't even bother to click once when they're on your site. And when they see your URL on a piece of paper or on a billboard or they hear it over the radio, they have to type by hand the whole URL. And if they're in the radio, if it's on the radio, particularly, they have to remember it and then type the whole URL later. That's called the offline to online conversion, and it is a very steep hurdle. Promoting websites anywhere other than the web is hard work for meager returns. Now, we've talked a little bit about the website. Let's talk about this very important part of the website, contact forms. Now, of course, that could mean the old contact us form. This is Shade Creek Watershed Association. Here it just says contact us. And so that's a legit. People don't really fill those out very much if it just says contact us, kind of devoid of contact. But let me give you some other examples. Here we have a petition, action alert, clean water action. You know, sign right up. The first thing they ask for is the email address. Here I have a Riverkeeper pollution reporting form. First name, last name, email address. Here I have these lobby day registration forms, email address, email address. Here we have a protest page. You click this link, they're going to ask you for your email address. Here I have a donation form, Blue River Watershed Association. They're looking for first name, last name, mailing address, zip code, email address. These forms are crucial part of your website because every one of the examples that I just gave you involves collecting an email address, potentially a social media handle, some of them, which will allow you to get back in touch with these folks and try and bring them back to your website for another 350 to some odd words and hopefully some other action that benefits your work. Most conservation or organization websites fall into the trap of too much reading and not enough opportunities to engage or opportunities to engage that are buried and harder to find than the average visitor is motivated to look for.
Eric, quick question from Casey regarding QR codes. Where do those fall on the spectrum of being easy to access, and what are your thoughts on those?
I do not have deep evidence-based thoughts on QR codes. QR codes were seemed like a passing fad until COVID, and then suddenly every restaurant menu had one, and I think a lot of people are more comfortable with them. But it's still, I mean, think about it. Your average website visitor won't even click to a new page, and you have to pull open your phone, unlock your phone, find the camera app, go into, at least in mine, it's lens mode, then shoot the QR code. A lot of times it would just be easier to type a short URL than it is to activate the QR code. But I'm sure that there are benchmarks and studies out there on that, but I haven't seen those. I'm still of the fundamental opinion that the best way to bring someone to your website is social media, email, or a link on another page and good search engine optimization. They're just not that likely to end up at your website from a piece of paper. They're just not. So now we had these contact forms. We had the petition, the action alert. We had the pollution reporting. We signed up for lobby day. We RSVP'd for the protest. We made a donation. Where do we end up? Well, that's in some kind of place where you can retrieve that information to go back out to them And so if we stick with the move on metaphor that a website is really just a vacuum cleaner for sucking up email addresses, then the CRM, that's customer relations management or contact relations management database, is the bag in the vacuum cleaner that holds all those email addresses that you sucked up. And that is a super important part of the website. If your website is not connected to one of these services, it's probably not really pulling that much weight for you and your mission. And here's some examples. There's a lot of different CRMs out on the market. That is not my area of expertise. I cannot help you select one or configure one, but I can help you bring names into it through the kinds of things that we're discussing here today. So here's just a few that our clients seem to be using. The list changes over time. There's Every Action. I hear about Boomerang. I hear about Network for Good. I hear about Click and Pledge. My friend Barrett Strawn offers Watergrass. There's Salsa. It goes on and on. There's so many of these things out there. And then for some of our very smallest clients, if they're just getting started and aren't ready to make the big investment of time and money into one of these, you can accomplish a lot with a very simple Google form. And some of the examples I showed you earlier in the call were actually just simple Google forms that have been lightly decorated, and they're bringing in pollution reports, and they're getting people signed up for lobby day, and they're doing all that stuff. But the main thing is that website is turning visitors into contact information so you can bring them back. And if you went to a professional web shop, web design or web marketing shop, you would find that what they are talking about, their principal metric by which they evaluate the success of an organization, is how successfully does it feed email addresses and contact information into that CRM so that you can go back out to those individuals and give them a nudge rather than basically creating an online library or a repository of tons of information, which people don't really interact with as much as you might think. If you have collected the information from the visitors, you can, of course, go all the way back out and try and bring them back to you again. So it's really a cycle, and that website is just one piece in that cycle. We're looking for a continuous flow of visitors who somehow leave their contact information with you through some kind of an advocacy action, so you can follow up and bring them back again and again and again. If you just focus on the website without these things, that's how you're going to probably end up being the half of conservation organization websites that are basically only visited by their own staff. Half of conservation organization websites are basically only visited by their own staff because all the effort has gone into here and not much into all the rest of it. So let me give you some examples of weak links and strong links. And I'm going to start here on the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Let's fill out an action alert. How long does it take us to fill out an action alert? So I arrive at the home page. I scroll down and down and down. That's not so bad. People scroll. But there's nothing on the home page about action alerts, just this Action Center button. Now, I'm an insider, so I know that that means action alert. So here we go. Click number 1. Takes us to a bunch of action alerts. Click number 2. Takes us to the action alert, and then I fill it out, and click number 3. Finally, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation has collected my email address. 3 clicks for them to collect my email address. 3 clicks is not something that most people want to do. Here's another example. This is a stronger example. Now we're on the NRDC web page. Here's their action alert right on the home page. 1 click, two clicks. Natural Resources Defense Council gets my email address after only 2 clicks. Chesapeake Bay Foundation gets my email address after 3 clicks. And the difference between 3 clicks and 2 clicks is a lot. That's a big difference. As a percent of visitors to the traffic, visitors to the website, NRDC is going to get a lot more action alerts, send a lot more messages to decision makers, have a lot more contact information to follow up with than the Chesapeake Bay Foundation is going to be getting, simply because it's 2 clicks for NRDC and 3 clicks for Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Let's do this on donation. This is Youghiogheny Riverkeeper out in Pittsburgh. Watch this. So this starts out, this is about Youghiogheny Riverkeeper, donate to defend. So let's see. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 clicks. 4 clicks. 5 clicks. 5 clicks. I do not think very many people find their way through that chain to this form. Meanwhile, over here at American Rivers, let's see how this goes. One click to the donate page. Two clicks, 3 clicks, I guess. 5 clicks, 3 clicks. Each click is a hurdle. Each click, people get lost along the way. The more clicks you have, the fewer people reach the end. And so now I got a question here from Sarah. What if the actual form is on the homepage instead of the button to the sign up? I'm all for it. I'm all for having whatever kind of form it is. Is it an email subscription form? Is it a donate form? Is it a take action form? Is it a volunteer form? Is it a lobby day sign up form? Is it a submit a public comment form? Is it a RSVP for the protest form? You know, all the different things. The faster you can get them to the actual form that they actually fill out, the fewer clicks that they have to get through to get to that form, the more likely they are to do it. And if it's right on the homepage, that's no harm done. So there was a sign up on the homepage of CBF. Yes, there was, but that was not for the action alert. This is an email subscription. And we were looking at action alerts. So yeah, 1 click to sign up for email. It would be even better though if you didn't have to click at all. 0 clicks. Name, email address, subscribe, done. Chesapeake Bay Foundation. There's at least 1 click through the screen there.
Eric, we have a good
And so Katie.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Katie brought up a good question regarding pop-ups. She said Constant Contact allows subscribers to have pop-up forms. So do you have thoughts on having those on homepages?
Yes, I like them.
Short and sweet.
Make them click away instead of click to your form. I'm all for it. Could I give you a better, more succinct answer than that? I'm all for the pop-ups. So tying it all together before I pause to take more questions, visits will be short. You can wish otherwise, but they will be short. So try and make them frequent by capturing contact information. Visitors don't like to click, so put as few clicks as possible in their path. Half of your visits will be on mobile devices, so keep your navigation as simple as possible. Fewer and fewer pages, longer is okay. Cut out all of the, avoid the temptation to have your website be a repository of every last thing that you ever did, because that just makes it harder for the visitor to find their way around. Finally, treat your website as a vacuum cleaner that sucks up email addresses and stores them in your CRM so you can keep reaching out. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions.
Awesome. Well, I know we have one to get us started. Just to follow up from the pop-ups question. Thoughts on pop-ups being on all pages?
I have no objection to that.
Yeah, I've noticed that it's particularly effective when it's not a constant presence on a website, but it's used at specific times. Showcases a sense of urgency. Certainly end of year giving is a time where it makes sense. Any other questions? Feel free to drop a question in the chat, or if you let me know in the chat, I can also take you off mute if you want to ask your question orally. Let's see. Question from Courtney: what about offering content in a second language, specifically Spanish?
I think it is a nice thing to do if you really believe that you have a meaningful number of visitors that are going to be using that other language. I know, because I am learning Spanish myself, that even if I visit a Spanish level web page, my Chrome browser will offer me the opportunity to translate that using an automated translation service. I don't have to clutter up my own website navigation with an English page and a Spanish page when a Spanish language user could just translate it using their browser built right in. Yes, there is a Google Translate widget that you can offer on your web page, but again, these are kind of, I would encourage you to first check your overall site traffic and see if anybody is visiting your website other than your staff, because for about 50% of you on this call, your website is largely visited only by your staff, and getting that dealt with as the first order of business. If before some of these other improvements, I'd encourage you to think hard about how do we get enough people there that some of these other improvements would be worth the investment. How important is ADA compliance on websites at the moment? So I am not an expert on ADA compliance. It's basically about making websites available to people who are visually impaired. We don't build websites for state and federal agencies because they have very stringent requirements there. But if your site is well optimized for search, which I mentioned earlier in the call, it will also be well optimized for screen readers. So now here's a really important question that came in. How do you eliminate staff page visits from Google Analytics results? If you turn that into a Google search, you will find the answer. There are some ways in Google Analytics of configuring it that it excludes your own staff from the results. I don't know how to do it right off the top of my head, but I've done it before. A Google search will give you that answer. That's a very smart thing to do. It can be quite eye-opening once you eliminate your own staff, how few visitors you have left to work with, and it will help you recognize the importance of that first part I was talking about, which is how do visitors find websites and how do you get those numbers up? because for about half of you, that should be your number one concern is nobody's visiting the website for all the work that we did already, and we need to fix that before we do any more work. So Tally's question is, do these rules apply if you are developing a website for a very specific audience? I'm working on one that's info mainly for Pennsylvania water trail managers. Tally, no, that's a very different kind of a situation. You know, you have a very, very super niche audience there with a high degree of commonality. And so I would think that if they tell you they want something, you should go ahead and give it to them. But you know, if you are formatting content with the water trail managers in mind, it is unlikely that casual visitors to that site would stay very long or dig very deep. So you just got to be realistic about what it is that you're trying to accomplish there. But Drew asked me to focus on advocacy stuff today, so that's what I've been doing.
We had another question regarding pop-ups. Was there any concern with that alerting spam alerts?
Some websites will block pop-ups. That's no reason for you not to try them. I'm sorry, some browsers will block pop-ups. What I like about pop-ups is that they really focus the organization on, like, what's the most important thing right now? And then for a certain period of time, it's end of year giving, or for a certain period of time, it's member survey, or for a certain period of time, it's, you know, this action alert, or the lobby day, or whatever. And that is the best practice for a website, is that for, you know, a few weeks, you're pushing it all out on one thing. And then, you know, for the next couple of weeks, you're pushing hard on the other thing. And then for a few weeks after that, you're pushing hard on the other thing, as opposed to, here's everything we know, here's everything we stand for, here's everything we're up to at any given moment. We have a very complicated navigation that kind of ties it all together, and we hope you're motivated enough to go walk through that menu to, you know, discover the whole thing all at the same time, which is just not really how people use websites.
I think we have time for one last question. Before I get to that, though, I just want to repeat, I'll drop this in the chat here in just a second. We have a survey that we would really appreciate if everyone could fill out. Really is helpful when it comes time for us to look at our future trainings and determining what works, what didn't, what resonated with folks. So please take just a couple minutes to fill out the survey. We'd really appreciate it. But do want to ask Casey's question that she asked a few minutes ago regarding how to handle a media section. So is it best to post your media coverage in one media section, or is that a better suited for social media and e-newsletters?
My inclination would be to share that in social media and e-newsletters. It's past coverage. It gives us all an ego boost when we get the coverage that we like. But, you know, anything that I can do to have one less section on that website, one less page on that website, keep it really focused on who the visitors are so I can get their contact information and bring them back again and again and again, is more the direction I'd encourage you to steer into.
Great. Well, I know we're at time, but really thank you everyone so much for attending. Again, we'll post this later on our YouTube page, so stay tuned for that recording if you want to revisit it or share it with any colleagues. And we'll send that to your email. But just want to reiterate again, if you could take just a couple minutes to complete our survey, we would really appreciate that. Until then, we'll hope to see you all at our next training, the final one on October 27th, all about email and social media engagement. So there's definitely some teases to that and what Eric will cover in today's presentation, but hope to see you all then.
Looking forward to it all. Thank you all for your time. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody.